Hi everyone, Happy New Year. Welcome to 2026. And this is our very first episode of this year. First off, shout out to Orema for finally sending my tripod after almost 2 months. I know at the last episode I had called them out because they had been holding a tripod that I got during their Black Friday sale in November. Exactly, and this is January. But either ways, we have it now, so thanks be to God. How has 2026 been? We've had like a week, 2 weeks in this year. I hope it has been all that you envisioned and even much more. On today's episode, I would love for us to have a discussion on how to have a meaningful life. So the other day, I was cleaning my room as I usually do, and most times whenever I'm doing chores, I always like to have something I'm listening to, music, podcast. And I was listening to a podcast. It was an episode from TED Talk Daily. So it was a re-release of How to Live a Meaningful Life by Brian S. Laurie. And it really just resonated with me because there's certain things that he made mention of that I could see that had happened to me. So one of the first things that he did was he shared how that he got into Stanford University, and then he knew that he had 7 years before he was supposed to be reviewed in order to get a tenure. And what that basically means is if he's able to be reviewed to get a tenure, he has like retirement is sorted basically, right? He's going to work in the university for life. I hope I'm correct. But while he was speaking, of course, he then further shared about how that meant that for the next 7 years he had goals, right? He had what he was trying to accomplish. Every morning he knew that if he published more papers, if he did this, if he did that, this was going to be an outcome. And at the end of the 7 years, he applied and he got his tenure. Yay, congratulations. And after that, he could not help this sinking feeling of, is that it? What's next? Is this it? And while I was listening, I recalled something that happened to me a couple of years back when I was just starting out in the job market. And I remember I saw an opportunity, right? A job opportunity that I really wanted to get. And I did a lot of things, right? And I got it. And I was happy. And 1 month in, I kept asking myself, what's next? Is this it? And it just made me realize, listening again, how that as we go on in life, one of the things that fuels us each day is having something that wakes us up. That is, having a goal that you're waking up to pursue, having something that gives your life meaning. Right. So I'm waking up to take the kids to school, I'm working hard to make sure that I'm taking care of my parents. I'm working hard to make sure that I am surviving. Right. And oftentimes when it seems like you've reached a plateau of what you're trying to achieve for yourself, and it's like I have gotten to the pinnacle of what success could look like, a number of people easily falter, easily get into this slum of, what am I supposed to do next? Is this it? Right? If you really take a look at life, you realize that life is not meant to just be every day waking up, sleeping, eating, every day waking up, sleeping, eating. That's my personal opinion, but I think that at some point you'd get bored of that. At some point, it would be meaningless. Because what then is driving you? What then is motivating you to do the things that you do? And I believe that that's one of the reasons why we set goals, right? As humans. So, what exactly does meaningfulness mean? And how do we quantify meaningful life? Now, if you are very familiar with football, I can to some extent, AFCON is currently ongoing. And there has been this super fan. His name is they call him Lumumba VA. I don't know if VA is like a word, but his real name is Michael Kuka Mbola Dinga. Please pardon me if I mispronounce your name. But Of course, um what brought him to limelight was that every AFCON game, especially when Congo was playing, he took a stand and he reenacted the Patrice Lumumba statue. The statue where one hand is up and he is in complete still motion all through the 90 minutes of the game. And of course, that got people talking because, okay, this is really beautiful. What's it trying to achieve? Now, something happened. This is just by the way. I think Algeria knocked out Congo, DR Congo, that's Democratic Republic of Congo. And an Algerian player, I don't know his name now, he somewhat mocked, um, you know, Lumumba V's portrayal of the Patrice Lumumba statue, where he tried to do it and then he fell down, sort of hinting at the fact that Congo has been knocked out. And it was such a devastating moment. Of course, Nigeria came in and we did the job. But that aside, one thing, of course, right now he has been a lot more prominent, and based on the recent news I read, he has been allowed to stay till the end of AFCON in Morocco, right? Free tickets till the end of AFCON. I think they haven't given me a car or something, or something. But what I'm trying to bring out from this story is the fact that got me thinking, who exactly is Patrice Lumumba and what did he stand for? I've always been familiar with the name Patrice Lumumba because I know he's a Pan-Africanist. He's one of the national leaders of Africa, especially in the 20th century, who fought for the independence of Congo from Belgium. And he did, but I was not so familiar with him as a person, what he stood for and what he did, right? And just being able to see another person over, because it was 1960 that DR Congo got there. He became the prime minister of DR Congo. So that's like over 50 years, right? Almost 70 years, it's not even over 70 years. And someone else who was obviously inspired by the life that Patrice Lumumba lived and what he stood for is bringing attention again to this person. And I think in some ways that's what it means to live a meaningful life. A life that at the end of the day, when you're not here, someone can still point to the fact that as a result of this person's choices, lives were inspired. That's one of the first things that got out to me, right? And of course, Patrice Lumumba was someone who, despite the fact that he had a very short stint in politics, primarily in his position as the prime minister, the effort and the accomplishments and the things that he was able to do and the things that he was able to stand for and the way he was able to galvanize the people of Congo at that time still stands as a legacy today. Right. And of course I was thinking about that, and I remember 2013 when Nelson Mandela died and then he had his state memorial, and I remember exactly where I was watching his state memorial. Barack Obama came, a number of world leaders, prominent world leaders were there talking about the life and the achievements that he had done. And I recall thinking that, oh my god, this is what it means to live a life of impact. I was in my teens then, but I was always a huge fan of Madiba, right? I'd read about him growing up. And I always felt like this is someone that lived the kind of life that I would like to live. Why? Because he did not just live for himself, he lived for other people. And of course, research has gone on into what it means to live a meaningful life. And the TED Talk I spoke about earlier delved a bit into what research talks about, right? Coherence, that is just having a life that flows, that shows, that after point A is point B, right? After primary school is secondary school, then university, then getting a job. There is just coherence, there's what to do, there are steps to take, right? And then there's also, personal achievements, personal goals, what I want to achieve. For instance, my plan growing up, right, was that by this age I should have my driver's license. But that aside, and you really should get a driver's license. But that aside, right, having a person, and when I do get it, then I'm going to be very happy. I'm going to be very proud of myself. Like, for instance, there are certain people that they are writing towards, they want to pass an examination or they want to do this. And those are personal achievements. And hitting each of these milestones will definitely give you some form of meaning in life, right? But most importantly, the third one is purpose. And one thing that I think cuts across all of the examples and case studies I have cited, and also what research has found about is the fact that living a meaningful life can be quantified at its peak. Living a life that impacts other people, living a life that transcends just yourself and just your needs. If you really think about it, we cannot all be Patrice Lumumbas, we cannot all be Nelson Mandela, right? Not all of us are going to get the opportunity to stand on stages or to be in rooms where we can make decisions that can influence the lives of thousands of people. But in each and every of our choices every day, right? In the life that we get to live in our daily, day in, day out lives, we get to make choices that can at least impact one or two persons, right? It could be your neighbor, how you decide to treat them after, you know, for instance, there's a blackout, there's flooding, there are some things that happen in the environment. How do you react to that? And how do you make decisions that would make the next person beside you actually feel impacted by you? So a good example, of course, again going back to TED Talk, the speaker was giving example of someone who he met during his PhD and how that they were able to work together and he was able to be of tremendous help to him. And of course, that person is doing wonders right now. And for him, he's just satisfied in the fact that at some point in time in his life and his journey, he was able to meet someone who he was able to be of impact to. And if you think about your life, I'm pretty sure that there would have been times and opportunities where you have the opportunity to be able to influence someone. A very good example is in the workplace, right? If you work in corporate and you are either a line manager or you have someone that reports to you, you have someone that you report to. Right. I would always say this, that having a good line manager is so underrated, especially for people who are at the beginning of their career. Ask anyone who was able to have a manager that trained them or that helped them out. Till tomorrow, they would always speak about the influence that that person had in their own life. It might seem small, but I bet you it's not. Right. So when it comes to living a meaningful life, I think at the core of it is making choices that help someone else live a better life. So it's not just about um, how beautiful I want my life to be, because I want my life to be beautiful. I know you want your life to be beautiful. But in life, you would have opportunities to help someone else make their own life beautiful. We're not all going to be, medical doctors and avengers, right? But taking steps each and every day to make sure that I'm doing something to help someone. A very good example. The other day, and this is just really minor, I was on my way to church very early in the morning. I stayed over at a friend's place and we were headed out. And then we entered the keke, which is a tricycle, a very beautiful means of transportation in some parts of the world. And there was this elderly man, probably would be in his 70s, 80s at most, and 70s at least. And I just realized that how much was the transportation fare? It really was how much. And I just chose to pay for him. I don't know him. Probably might not remember him. I probably might never remember this year to come. But I'm pretty sure that that day he must have smelled because he wasn't expecting somebody to do that for him. And again, that is just something minor, right? Um, it could be an example of I'm moneying my loan or I'm clearing out the front of my house, and then I want to clear out that of my neighbors. So I'm using this very simple example, and of course, you could have bigger examples where you're working on a major project, or you know someone who's working on a major project, and you decide to volunteer your time and your energy towards helping them. These are choices that you would make each and every day, and as you make these choices, some of them can help you live and lead what you call a meaningful life. Um, One of the things that I also wanted to say today was I'm currently reading a book, and I was thinking of reading an excerpt to you from the book. I'm going to do a proper book review of the book once I'm done because I think it's a very, very interesting book. There's an excerpt, there's a part of the book that spoke about death and how people react to death. But the author, of course, was coming from a point of, oh, Nigerians can be hypocritical in their reaction to death in terms of if you've lived a horrible life, you die, everybody is going to paint you as a saint. But much more than that, right? What stood out for me is the fact that who you are or who people perceive you to be or the kind of image that you paint to other people about yourselves will remain after death. So in the book, the author was writing about how that there was a man that she had known when she was younger, who, of course, he was more or less like a sexual predator, and the young girls were always been advised to ensure that they stay clear of him. But when he died, people went for his burial, acted like he was a wonderful person. She was, of course, finding it hard to reconcile with, right? Why are we acting like this person was a savior when he obviously was not? And for me, that just made me realize that the fact that he died did not erase the horrible things that he had done, or did not erase, like, no matter how much you try to paint someone as good, how they were before death, in the life that they've lived, the people that they've impacted, the people that have experienced them, would always remain the same. Which means that every single day that you're alive, you have an opportunity to write the kind of story you want people to have of you when you know more. Every single day you wake up, you can't choose to live a meaningful life by the choices you make, right? And I'm going to round this up because I actually have to round this up. I was reading, or rather, I was watching Nelson Mandela's memorial again, and I was listening to Barack Obama's speech then, and he was, of course, talking about the life that Madiba had lived, and he made a reference to a South African word called Ubuntu. I hope I pronounced it correctly. And he was talking about the fact that the concept of Ubuntu is one that Nelson Mandela not just understood but he portrayed in his life, which is the idea that as humans we are all bound together by an invincible thread, right? And how that the best way for us to live a meaningful life, right? Right, or the best way to achieve ourselves or to attain, you know, happiness of self-fulfillment is in sharing ourselves with other people and caring for other people, right? So it's going out of your own way to do things that might not necessarily benefit you in the long run, but knowing fully well that someone else's life is going to be changed, is going to be impacted by the choices that you're making. And at this juncture, I would end today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. I hope something stood out for you, really. And you could just leave one or two things in comments that stood out for you. Like I mentioned, we would be having this year. My major plan this year is to work on a series on history, not just Nigerian history, but African history. I believe that we are at a point in the world where we might need to remember some of the things that happened before we were in the world. And so I'm very open to discussions about that. I'll be having guests on the show, and if you also know one or two persons who you think would be ideal for this, please kindly send us a DM about it, or you could send us an email about it. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye. Bye, everyone.